Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to the Creative Group's 2018 Salary Talk. My name is Diane Domeyer, and I am the Executive Director for the Creative Group. We are a specialized staffing firm that places professionals in the realms of creative, marketing, and digital. If you're familiar with us, you may be aware that we place those professionals on a freelance basis. We help organizations with their direct hire needs, and we also help them with their project solutions if they're looking for project-based teams to accomplish their strategic work. As the Executive Director for the Creative Group, in addition to the services that we provide, I'm very happy to share with you that in addition to our services, we believe that we fulfill a broader purpose, which is through the thousands of hiring managers and creative and marketing professionals that we work with each and every year, that we compile our research to share career trends and workplace trends in the ever-changing world of marketing and creative. So welcome to today's webinar. Our discussion today will be around salaries, but above and beyond salaries and compensation trends, what are some of those workplace trends that are impacting your organizations today? So as we get started, I want to share, I was recently had an opportunity, I was in Las Vegas for a major conference, and while in Las Vegas, as many do, I opted to sit at a blackjack table. And I'm not an experienced blackjack player, but one thing, if you've ever had that experience, that you'll note is if you sit at a blackjack table as maybe an inexperienced blackjack player, generally that dealer will help you to understand kind of when you should take a card, when you shouldn't, and in other words, how to play your cards right. So today's webinar and the salary guide that we present to you, think of us as your helpful blackjack dealer that can share with you both, kind of what's happening, but what are also the rules of the game so that you can play your cards right. So I am joined today by two of our experts. As I shared with you, I am the Executive Director. I'd like to introduce our speakers today. My role as the Executive Director for the Creative Group is as we are a Robert Half company, and I work with our operations throughout North America, working with thousands of hiring managers and job seekers and creative professionals to navigate the ever-changing landscape. I'm also joined by Suan Sherman, our VP of TCG Managed Services, as well as Sarah Pak, our VP of Strategic Accounts on the Enterprise Agency side. And I'd like each of them to introduce themselves as they'll share their expertise with you today. Suan?
Thank you, Diane, and I appreciate the opportunity to spend a little time with everyone. And as Diane mentioned, I'm the VP for TCG Managed Services. I run the project-based and service-based solutions for the Creative Group nationally. And so all the work that I perform is with small, mid, and large enterprises on the corporate side, typically for different types of initiatives or projects that they're trying to accomplish and provide them solutions for that. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sarah.
Thank you, Suan. And likewise, it's a great opportunity and honor to be able to share this time with everyone today. As Diane and Suan had mentioned, I'm Sarah Pak, the VP of Strategic Accounts for Enterprise Agencies for the Creative Group. Throughout my tenure with TCG, I've helped drive growth for the company in partnering with creative, marketing, and advertising agencies of all sizes, including some of the nation's top global agencies, including Omnicom, IPG, WPP, and Publicis Group. I work alongside our local TCG teams on branding and marketing initiatives for clients and overcoming recruiting, hiring, and retention challenges that's specific to the agency industry. And with that, I'll pass back to Diane to kick us off.
Great. We look forward to hearing from both of you, Suan and Sarah. So that's our purpose of our webinar today. You'll know a little bit about your presenters. We'd like to know about you. We'd love to know who we have on the call today because clearly you've come from different viewpoints, and we would love to know, are you currently a hiring manager or employer looking for tips on retaining and attracting top talent? Are you more on the career side as a job seeker or employer? Or are you coming to this webinar today with a view into both? So if you'd take a second and submit your answer, we would love to know who we have on the call today. So we'll give it a second here. So very clearly, we have a high representation of how do you use this information for recruiting and retaining top talent on today's call. Wonderful. So we're going to step through the findings of our guide. We're going to share with you some of the trends that we're seeing from employers, not just in North America, but frankly worldwide. And then we're going to leave it open for some Q&A at the end of the webinar. So if you'll notice, there is a Q&A widget in your webinar platform where you can submit questions as we go through, and we will do our best to handle as many or the most common questions at the end of today's webinar. So first of all, I'd like to take a minute and share with you a little bit about our guide. So we just released our 2018 salary guide, which is the basis for the information we're going to share with you today. We do that and have done that every year for quite some time. And as I mentioned, it covers both the hiring environment as well as current employment trends. It includes salary data for more than 80 marketing, design, digital, advertising, and public relations positions. So you can find that information in a very detailed manner. But it will provide as well an overview of the most in-demand positions that we see based on the clients that we work with. It includes a sampling of job descriptions and then practical advice for hiring as well as complete compensation packages, not just salaries, but what is the most current trends as it relates to the total package for compensation. So we've published this each year for the last 18th year. It is highly regarded as a industry piece, and it's so highly regarded that it's actually been utilized by the U.S. Department of Labor for the BLS for when they compile what they call their Occupational Outlook Handbook. So ours is a look forward as it relates to what trends we expect in the next or coming year. So we have made some changes to our guide this year, if you're familiar with it, and we'll talk a little bit about what you can find within. But what hasn't changed is that this is a resource for you to make sure that you maintain a level of competitiveness in the marketplace, not just from a compensation standpoint, but from an overall workplace standpoint. And in today's environment, I will tell you that is very important. Because, to quote someone we all know very well, Steve Jobs once said that recruiting is hard. And it is, not just from the standpoint of finding the talent, but also making sure that it's a right fit. And he, at Apple, during this tenure that it was there, was one thing that he never delegated was hiring. And in his tenure, interviewed over 5,000 prospective employees for Apple. So the fact that you're on the webinar today means that you too are committed to making sure that you're presenting your organization in the greatest light. So that's what's not changed is we're committed to helping you get the most accurate and current information on hiring and compensation trends in the marketing and creative professional or in the world. What you will find in the guide is that what is listed are average starting salary ranges. So as you all are probably well aware, compensation can mean much more than just salary, but we include average starting salary ranges inclusive of the regional variances, so that if you're in Chicago and you're hiring versus you're in Denver, what is that regional variance? So we include national averages, and then you can adjust by your regional variance. So that's what has not changed. What has changed in our guide this year is that our marketplace asked us for much more detailed information. So we now break down the information, and we'll share with you later in the webinar where you can get a copy of the guide and the information, but that we share much more detailed information relative to percentiles, as well as, of course, the complete list of roles in marketing, creative, and digital. So what you'll see here is that there is a variance by 25th percentile, 50th percentile, 75th, and 95th percentile. What you see here are just samples of some of the design-related roles. Again, as an example, these are starting salaries. They are national averages that would need to be adjusted for your regional variance, depending on the city that you're in. But the difference between 25th, 50th, 75th, and 95th percentile may depend on your company size, if you've got variance in the levels of years of experience, right? Lower on the years of experience would be towards the lower end, towards the more in-depth experience at the upper end of the level. And then you have to take as well into consideration company size, and in some cases, the competitiveness of your industry. So if you're in a highly competitive industry, you may need to be towards that 75th to 95th percentile. And so those are the things that you'll see in terms of those variances. So let's talk about the trends that we're seeing. So 5 trends that are driving hiring today. First of all, unemployment rates are low and hiring competition is intense. Just overall, and I'll use just in the U.S., the unemployment rate in the U.S. for all professions is the lowest that it has been since the year 2000. So even better than when we went into the recession, it's now back to year 2000 levels of unemployment. And so if any of you were in a hiring capacity back then, you knew how competitive it was in Y2K, et cetera. So it's the lowest since 2000. Our national unemployment rate as of October was 4.1% for all professions. If you look more specific within the marketing and creative industry, it's even lower than that. So as of October, the unemployment rate for designers was 3.4%. For marketing and PR managers, the unemployment rate is 3%. So unemployment rates have steadily gone down, yet demand has increased for marketing and creative professionals. So that makes it a very challenging hiring environment. I wanted to share one example of that. In addition to those statistics, I just, through our partnership with CareerBuilder, we post many positions with CareerBuilder, but we also have access to some of their market intelligence, and they survey not only the number of postings on their site, but they look broadly at job postings by profession, as well as active employees in the marketplace. And just as a point of comparison to underline that low unemployment rate, I happen to sit in the San Francisco Bay Area. For a marketing manager position in the Bay Area in the last 6 months, there's been almost 6,100 jobs posted, 6,100 jobs in the Bay Area alone for marketing managers. Yet in terms of those that are active job seekers with that professional experience, those are those that are actively updating and posting their positions, there are only 440 active candidates in that same period of time. So 440 of 6,100 jobs. So that's just one slice that shows that this unemployment rate is driving demand for hiring, making it challenging to find talent. The second trend that we see is that there's been profound change in design and marketing overall as a direct result of technology and direct result of the digital revolution. So with the rise of demand in and capabilities in web and mobile, social media, video and the capabilities of video and demand for video, the drive for and capabilities in artificial intelligence, the future of AR, augmented reality, and VR, virtual reality. All of that has changed the capabilities of any brand to communicate with its customer. And so as a result of those capabilities, marketing messages have changed, customer experience is the hot button, and it's very challenging for many organizations, especially small and mid-size, to keep up with that change in terms of how they are connecting with their customers. So that is driving demand as well. So you have low unemployment, increased demand, which makes it, kind of ripe for opportunity for marketing and creative professionals, but challenging for the hiring managers. So the next point that I wanted to make is that in addition to unemployment rates being low and profound change in our industry, organizations have to balance what's most important with what they hire. So Suan, I want you to share a little bit about what you're seeing as it relates to the skills in demand.
Thank you, Diane. And one of the things just to point out is hard skills and soft skills, they carry equal weight, but they're very different in what they are and why companies look for them. 58% of advertising and marketing executives surveyed by TCG said hard skills and soft skills carry equal weight, and that they are evaluating candidates based upon both perspectives. 23% said that soft skills carry more weight than hard skills. So there is a couple of very distinct differences, though, between hard skills and soft skills. Hard skills are relatively transferable. They can be taught. Soft skills usually are more difficult to develop, and they're typically, oftentimes, innate in the actual candidate themselves, but they often play a greater role in determining who might be the right fit for a role within a work environment. So, for example, earlier this week, I was at a Fortune 50 company organization speaking with their internal creative services team, and they're looking at different types of roles that they need to fill. And one of the key attributes they continue to go back and look at is, does the person have the ability to collaborate and work within their team environments? They're evaluating who are the stakeholders, where are they communicating, how do they need to integrate and get along with others, and that's a key component above and beyond just the actual hard skills themselves. In addition, I was at an energy company as well that one of the key aspects of whether or not they could add to the team or the person was going to be integrated into the team was their ability to take initiative, their ability to be able to problem solve. And so while you can look through this list, you can see on the hard skills you have the tools themselves, the design tools such as Illustrator or InDesign or Photoshop, or maybe an up-and-coming one such as XD or Sketch. You have other languages such as CSS and CMS, such as Drupal, WordPress, Joomla. But as you kind of work through those, a lot of those you'll find they are teachable, trainable. You can encourage people to take courses on them, or you can have them be mentored or trained by an existing person with knowledge transfer. But then if you look at the soft skills, communication, collaboration, creative thinking, other ones are the power of influence, especially when you're dealing and looking at a team that has to integrate and seamlessly work with stakeholders that are around the company or even around the globe. There has to be a definite assessment on what you need in terms of the breakdown between hard skills and soft skills. And some companies that I've been speaking with, a lot of times what they'll do is they'll actually even stretch some of the hard skills, train them more so they can wait and look for a person who maybe they have to train a little bit more but has the soft skills that they're looking for. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Diane to just continue discussing trends.
Yeah, great. I mean, I think it's particularly interesting when we say that 23% say that they actually put more greater weight on the soft skills. And I think with that importance of collaboration and these projects that bring marketing, creative, tech together with the business, I would expect we'll just see that drive forward. So we've got low unemployment, we've got profound industry change, we've got skills that are in demand, and so as a result, it's the law of economics. the law of supply and demand, we are seeing that compensation for those most in-demand skills and experience are on the rise. So more than a quarter of the executives that we surveyed said that the most common reason that a candidate turns down a job offer is because of compensation and benefits. And so a couple of things to note here is, although we hear a lot in the press about the lack of wage growth, I will say that with our experience, we are seeing that in that most in-demand areas and some of the skills that Suan highlighted, that we see that starting salaries are on the rise. So a couple of things as an employer that you can do to make sure that you are able to attract the talent but also retain the talent in your team is you have to have a process, and more organizations, regardless of size, are benchmarking and doing wage audits annually and maybe even biannually, whereby there's a comparison against the marketplace based on what's posted online, based on some surveys such as the TCG Salary Guide, but also making sure that with that wage audit, they're looking at equity across their organization to make sure that they're on par with the market, but that they're also paying fair and equitably internally. So benchmarking and wage audits would be an opportunity. The other thing is you may have some limitations relative to what you can do on the salary side. So you need to consider your non-monetary perks, your environment, and above and beyond compensation, why it is that an individual would want to join or stay with your organization. So it is important to have some level of flexibility in negotiations. As a matter of fact, 60% of the hiring managers that we surveyed said that they are ready to negotiate, or willing to negotiate rather, at time of job offer. But that should apply not just to those that you hire. You need to make sure you're evaluating your internal staff as well. So in addition to wage audits, using our salary guide, also encourage you to consult specialized recruiters who oftentimes have really recent intel as it relates to market trends and what, perhaps without divulging too much, what your competition may be paying. So with that, those compensation is on the rise. We said that we are seeing that for some of the most in-demand skills. What you'll see here are some of those, these are average starting salaries for some of the most in-demand positions that we see in North America. And these are the roles that we've seen have kind of the most increase as it relates to starting salaries. But bear in mind, this is starting compensation only. And, these are the roles that are increasing in demand. We're also seeing a movement here where these roles have had increasing strategic importance, and we're seeing more organizations that maybe haven't hired these skill sets. They've maybe outsourced them to their agency or professional services partners, that they're bringing more of these roles in-house. And so, this is just a sampling of some of those that you will find in our guide. So with that, unemployment, is lowering, profound industry change, skills that are in demand, compensation is on the rise. And as such, many of the companies that we work with are concerned about retention. And so, Sarah, I was hoping, if you could share a little bit about what we're seeing relative to retention, and especially, kind of that agency view of what many are looking at.
Thank you, Diane. Yes, retaining star performers is always easier than finding and hiring new people. And 52% of advertising marketing executives surveyed by TCG said they're concerned about retaining current creative staff. The top causes of employee turnover are limited opportunities for career growth, job boredom, and inadequate compensation and benefits. According to a survey of more than 12,000 work professionals across the U.S. and Canada by our parent company, Robert Half, 1/3 of the workers said they will likely leave their current employer in the next 6 months. Why are employees apt to leave? In a separate survey by TCG, executives said the primary reason is limited opportunities for growth, and in fact, 30% of those surveyed stated that this would be the primary reason. Other top reasons included job boredom, inadequate compensation and benefits, excessive workload, unhappiness with management, and lack of recognition. And actually, earlier this year, our team in Dallas successfully placed 3 full-time and 2 temporary creatives in the print production studio of an integrated agency here in Dallas. All 3 of the full-time employees openings were due to resignations, and the 2 temporary needs were actually to keep the workflow going while he sourced for the full-time staff. One of the 3 employees who resigned had found a new position at a competing agency who allowed him to work on projects outside of the print studio, like within UX, because he wanted to strengthen his skills in the interactive space, but he had limited exposure to that at his current agency. Of the 2 other employees, one actually had resigned for a higher salary, as Diane had stated earlier that we do need to pay for high demand talent these days. And the last employee had actually resigned for a little to no bump in salary, but better non-cash benefits like working from home, a stable retirement plan, and 50 to 100% subsidized health and wellness benefits. And actually, within our survey of the advertising marketing executives, over 3/4 of the executives stated that their company offers some sort of alternative work arrangement. And I'll pass this back to Diane, who will share some of the current compensation practices in the creative market space that might be unique.
Thank you, Sarah. And we got a question that came in here, what do we mean by starting salary? So obviously, most organizations will offer opportunities over time for potential for increase. And so starting salary is basically the base pay or the salary that you are onboarded at with opportunities overall. But salary is just one part of the total package. So you need to look at the complete package to include your salary or base pay, the benefits that you may offer, any incentives that your organization provides, which are either cash, reward, or incentives that are tied to performance, and then the perks that you provide as well. So these are the privileges beyond benefits incentives that may be non-monetary, may be monetary, but also are about career and professional development. So we're definitely seeing that organizations are investing and evaluating all aspects of this. So we surveyed through our parent company, Robert Half, over 740 human resources, compensation, and benefits experts to really get more specific detail about how they are putting together their compensation plans. And first of all, as it relates to, there's a starting salary, but over time, how do they evaluate salary increases as a means of retaining and rewarding their employees? And so, first of all, the vast majority of companies offer salary increases directly tied to merit and performance, more so than cost of living adjustment or length of service, but directly tied to performance. And that is really key for retaining top talent. But in addition to base pay, what you'll see here is that the majority of companies that we surveyed do offer some form of monetary bonus. So 81% will provide some level of bonus. So those would be either individual, and it's based on either individual and company performance, individual company and team performance, or based on an individual's performance only. So that's the majority, but most organizations are offering some form of bonus potential that is tied directly to the performance of the individual, the company, and the team. So in addition to monetary, of course, there's the benefits package. And what you'll see here is, not necessarily, earth-shattering in terms of the majority of organizations and what they offer as it relates to medical, dental, life, vision, And of course, the Affordable Care Act has provided some of those opportunities for smaller companies as well, but it does mandate that employees over 50 will offer with over 50 employees will offer the majority of these benefits. But what we see a rise in is you'll look at these that are perhaps a little less offered, like the Employee Assistance Program or reimbursement for tuition, professional certifications. We see that on the rise, and in particular, as a means of retaining top talent, individuals want to feel like they are growing their career and have an opportunity to learn and progress. And playing into what Suwan said about the importance of soft skills, many organizations are investing in the training on the hard skills to invest and retain the quality or the performance of those that have the soft skills that they need. So we see that on the rise. So those are samples of benefits. As it relates to bonuses, these are the most common things that we see as it relates to bonuses from that same survey, whether that be spot awards, profit sharing, retention bonuses, stock options, and deferred compensation. But more in terms of what you'll see is most common there are spot awards for individual or team achievement. And that's a great way to tie individuals into your organization. In addition to base pay plus benefits, employees definitely take into consideration the perks. And this might be a little bit hard to read, but you've got flexible work schedules are more and more commonplace. As you've got more and more remote teams, the importance of building community is important with the impact of social events. And what I would say there is that's really important to highlighting your story. If you want to attract talent, you want to be able to say, what is it like to work there, right? Because above and beyond compensation, most people want to know their career is moving forward and that they enjoy the people that they work with. So you've got more and more companies that are offering wellness programs like on-site gym or access to a gym or other wellness programs. Flexible schedule again comes in, and then at the lower percentage here you see free or subsidized meals. It's interesting, that's something that gets a lot of press, right, especially here in the Bay Area with the high-tech companies. But really, the majority of organizations don't offer that. What we see a rise in is this flexible work schedule, but the importance of creating community amongst employees. So we've touched on most of this already, but pay for performance, nearly 2 out of 3 companies tie compensation to organization or individual performance. It's important to be able to help your employees save for their retirement, and 75% offer either a 401k or employer match. And then there's also great value on time off. On average, 14 days is standard for the first 5 years of employment, plus 9 paid holidays, including floating holidays. So those are some of the compensation trends, but we've talked about the challenge in finding good talent for your teams, and so Sarah's going to share some of the strategies that we see organizations implementing to attract top talent to your firm. So Sarah, over to you.
Thanks, Diane. With the top creative talent being in such high demand, employers and hiring managers have to work that much harder to recruit and retain the valued employees. And I'll share the 4 steps of recruiting success that you see on the slide here. Devise a marketing plan. Include details about what it's like to work at your organization, just like Diane had just stated, in your job descriptions or other recruiting materials, so it's visual and candidates can read that content. And include information like typical business hours, any sort of flexibility that might be offered, dress codes, group social activities, and emphasize why your company is a great place to work, and not only in the recruiting brochures or job descriptions, but also on your website and social media posts and email marketing, as that's been a huge marketing tactic these days. Secondly, refine your pitch. Salary isn't the only thing job candidates consider when making a final decision, as Diane just stated. They also take into account the corporate culture, professional development, and career advancement, such as attendance to conferences and seminars like Adobe Max or the AIGA Design Conference, and in addition to tuition and certification reimbursements. Thirdly, conduct situational interviews. Questions that invite job candidates to resolve an imaginary situation or react to a given situation help uncover those soft skills that Sawan and Diane both had emphasized earlier. An example could be, if you notice a decline in employee morale, what would you do to improve things around the company? And lastly, but not least important, it's actually probably one of the most suggested tactics these days, is to move quickly. The most talented marketing professionals are definitely weighing other options. In a survey done by TCG, we found that 69% of job applicants lose interest in a firm. They don't hear back within 2 weeks after an initial interview. So after you interview a candidate, make a decision quickly and communicate it promptly so that doesn't leave him or her waiting or with time to have second thoughts. An example of this is something that I actually experienced last week. An interactive agency in Dallas lost out on 2 top candidates, an email designer and a content developer, because the offer wasn't made until 10 days and 14 days, respectively, after the initial interview. Of course, for temporary or contract positions, it would need to move significantly faster than that, given the duration. And we've recently witnessed an agency client lose a creative contractor to a competing agency for making the offer on a Monday morning instead of Friday afternoon. She actually had taken another contract over the weekend and had already started work on the Monday that the offer had come in. And so once you've hired this good talent, too, it's equally important to retain the employees that were so tough to secure. And I'm going to pass it off to Sawan now, who works with organizations with longer engagements and project initiatives, so he knows firsthand how crucial it is for employers to work just as hard on retaining that top talent.
Thank you, Sarah. So a lot of the companies that I meet with, they're really kind of taking a look at all the different aspects of retention. And when they're engaging myself, they're looking for solutions on, either services or outsourcing to help augment their full-time internal staff. And a lot of the things that resonates and really comes up in a lot of the conversations that I have with them is that these large enterprises they're actually starting to create a retention plan, not just a recruiting plan, but they're actually creating a retention plan. And they create metrics to measure the effectiveness of that plan. They want to know and understand, where are our internal employees, where are they most vulnerable to opportunities outside the organization? At what point in their career are they more susceptible to opening their ears or at least exploring? But a lot of these large enterprises that I speak with, over and over again, they speak more and more about an actual retention plan. So the 5 points here are a lot of the things that they actually put into those plans. So, for example, 1 is create a sense of purpose. Especially when you're dealing with a diverse workforce and multi-generational, you have a number of the generations that they just want to know, is the work that they're doing, is it making a difference? Is my contribution a part of the bigger scheme of what this company is looking to do, and is it making a difference? 2, recognize individual difference. We need to make sure as management that we're looking at people that are individuals. They want a supervisor and a manager that's going to treat them as an individual. They want to foster a spirit of cooperation among the multi-generational workforce. A lot of large companies and even mid and small companies, they're looking at ways to institute mentoring and reverse mentoring. So we can feed off of each other in those multi-generational aspects. They want to look at areas to structure teams to encourage those types of collaboration and team cohesiveness. 3, they want to make sure that they have career path discussions. If an employee's at an organization and it goes significant period of time, a year, 2 years, 3 years, and they really get the sense and the feeling like the company likes them but doesn't really envision them long term, then they start to get a little cold feet in terms of, hey, maybe I should look for something different. Maybe I should look for something outside the organization of a company that's going to look out for my career best interest. So they want to have the ability to set goals for advancements. They want that, and this is one of the things that the surveys really kind of pointed out for us, is that they're looking for that conversation about a career path and setting goals for a career path as a separate conversation than their compensation and their annual performance review. So they really want to have some focus, and that their manager and supervisor is taking a very pointed interest in their career. 4, support professional development. So we talked about hard skills and soft skills. One of the consumer goods companies that I visited with last week, they were actually in the middle of a company-wide training to help people at all different levels, and they have an entire track. They were talking about training 1.4, 1.3, and have you got to the next level? And each level covered a different thing. So one was hard skills, the next level was soft skills, the next one was mentoring. And so it was very interesting to see that that was all part of their retention plan, was the actual professional development that they wanted to encourage and include for the employees. And then 5thly, pay competitively. Losing good employees can often be avoided by an increase in salary or reward of a non-compensated perk. Sarah had talked about flex time, or being able to work remote from time to time. Money isn't everything, but it is a key component thing. One thing I would actually just throw out there is as I've talked to some companies, and they, for budget reasons, weren't able to give a compensation increase to an employee, and thus they lost the employee. But then when they went to backfill the employee, found that they actually had to pay the same amount that the original employee was actually looking for. So if they would have given that, their own employee a salary increase, they wouldn't have lost them in the first place. So just different scenarios that come up, think about, but I would definitely encourage everybody on the call just to take a look at creating a retention program, because it is definitely very important in today's world. I'll turn this back over to Diane to walk through some takeaways.
And that scenario, thanks, Suwan, that scenario that Suwan just highlighted about as compensation has gone up for in-demand skills, losing someone that then you find yourself in a position where you've got to hire at a different level. That's one of the reasons it's so important to be well informed relative to market trends and do a wage audit, use our guide, speak with a recruiter so that you understand what your current situation is. So retention is clearly very, very important. So some key takeaways: we're definitely in a candidate-driven market. And I think we've highlighted that on today's call. Sarah underlined the fact that when you are looking to hire, you need to move quickly. One thing we say in our business, and it applies for you as a hiring manager as well, is that time kills all deals. And I would say it's never been more prominent than it is today, with both the unemployment rates and the industry change that we're seeing. And retention should be top of mind for you. The fact that 1/3 of employees are thinking they may make a change in the next 6 months, whether they've spoken with you or not about that, you should be thinking about these retention strategies that Suwan has outlined. So our hope is that we can be a resource to you based on today's webinar, as well as our salary guide, to help you play your best hand, right? Let us be your ace that helps you to get to that blackjack that I mentioned early on. It's not just salary, but it is about the entire program as it relates to recruiting and retaining top talent. So here's where you can find our salary guide. If you do not have a copy of it, you can go to creativegroup.com/salary center. And what you will find here is the ability to download a PDF version of the guide, or you can request a guide, a hard copy, if you would be interested, and our team would be more than happy to send you one. But you can also use our salary calculator if you want to apply the regional variance that we talked about for as well as level of experience, so you can get a quick view of what the midpoint is. But we would encourage you to download a copy of the guide. In terms of additional resources, all of the research that we do throughout the year as it relates to career and workplace trends can be found on our blog at blog.creativegroup.com. And we would encourage you to subscribe to that so you're staying current with the trends in the marketplace. I do also want to emphasize that as it relates to the materials we've presented to you today, we will be sending a link following the webinar to everyone that's registered so that you can receive this webinar on demand, but you will also be able to access the slides and the information that we've presented for you today. So with that, I see that we have some questions that have been submitted, and we want to address those that we can here, or if you'd like to submit a question, feel free to do so in the Q&A widget. If we don't get to all of them, we will certainly double back after the webinar as well. So the first question is there any way in our salary guide that where we could monetize the total compensation package and not just base salaries? So what I would say by that is that we do include in there some, and you'll see if you download the guide, you will see that there's quite a bit of interesting information about that. But as it relates to the total compensation packages, it can vary significantly by industry, by company, by corporation versus agency. As a general rule, when we talk about benefits and perks plus bonus, generally speaking, that can equate to north of 30 to 35% above and beyond the base pay salary, right? So that's very important to know that it's not unusual that that be 30 to 35% above and beyond. But you can certainly find some of that information in the guide. The next question is there a standard range for offering raises? And so, again, I hate to say it, but that does depend by industries. But what we find in our research and with the companies that we work with is that as it relates to raises, because more and more organizations make those considerations based on merit, that we have seen those increase a little bit more than the average. So it's not unusual, and I don't have detailed statistics on this, but generally speaking, it's not unusual that annually many organizations will provide the opportunity for broad-based salary increases of somewhere in the 3 to 5% range as a standard eligibility for increases, especially to take into consideration cost of living changes. When we get into merit-based increases and organizations responding to the trends that Suwan said, which is concern about retention, and they know the skill sets that are in demand, if they have top performers, we see those merit increases. In some cases for in-demand skills might be even closer to 8 to 10% as opposed to the 3 to 5% that are more standard. So it kind of depends the industry, the company, the skill sets that are most in demand, but we're definitely seeing that companies are seeing a rise as it relates to annual increases. So I don't know, Suwan or Sarah, if you would have anything to add to that comment based on that question.
Diane, yes. Diane, yes. I'd like to really kind of add in an actual testimonial from a client who was asking the same question. It was a telecom company, and they were looking at specific type of innovation design roles that they had on the team, and was they were looking at their budget in terms of what they could afford in terms of compensation increases. And one of the things that they very wisely did is they took a look at some additional tools that the team had evolved into. And this was probably a little while ago, but about a year ago. But one of the big tools that they added in on the team was Swift. And they evaluated what it would cost to bring in, another developer who had Swift. And they went above and beyond. I think they actually went twice what the national average was in terms of compensation increase by percentage, simply because they recognized the fact that because the team had evolved and the tools that they were using, that they needed to make sure that they were compensating their people equally in terms of what it would take to backfill that role should that person leave. So I would just add that in as you're looking at different tools, whether it's XD or different types of new tools or new CMSs. Evaluate what that means to the actual position, even if functionally it's probably doing similar, but it's adding on new hard skills.
Great. Great perspective. Okay, so our next question, it's a great question. We find our young employees eventually, or some of them, taking for granted some of the elements of the total compensation employees. As an example, we pay 100% of health insurance premium. We match 3% in the 401k. How can we ensure that our employees value our perks? So, and I would say that may be the case, not necessarily for the new hires or one particular generation, but there's definitely importance that organizations need to pay on educating every employee in the company about what is available to them, right? So as an example, many organizations offer employee assistance programs. And that might include adoption assistance, that could include access to professional counseling, it could provide access to crisis management or financial savings. And using that as an example, when an employee comes into an organization and they're told that you offer employee assistance program, if they don't need it at the time, it goes in one ear and out the other. And then all of a sudden when they do need it, they didn't remember that it was offered. So the same could be true for those that might yet not be thinking about retirement or the value of their 401k, but later on it starts to make more sense to them. So what we find the best-in-class organizations do is, of course, at time of hire, there is the compensation package. They've used marketing materials and collateral to explain the benefits of each. But then above and beyond at open enrollment time, throughout the course of the year, they're doing almost an internal social media campaign through their intranet, through their employee newsletters, to educate and re-educate the employees of the benefits that are being offered. And I would say that that is important because oftentimes your audience only listens at the time that they may need it. So Sarah or Suwan, is there anything you see as it relates to ongoing communication of benefits to employees so that they get credit for the great work that they're doing? Anything you would add, Sarah or Suwan? I think maybe we're good. So next question. On the benefits being offered, are they typically all employer funded or a combination of employee and employer funding? When it comes to benefits, especially with the rising cost of health care as an example, the vast majority of organizations will have employer and employee funded programs. So much like the question we got just a minute ago where benefits are 100% paid by their employer, that is an advantage to that employer because the vast majority are jointly funded. So that would be the next question. So the next question we have, is there anywhere in your salary guide where you can identify other industries seeking creatives, such as the financial sector or the real estate sector, as an example, that's outside of the typical marketing firm? And so what I would say to this individual is, as a clarification, our marketing and creative staffing guide is cross-industry. So it is not uniquely focused on agencies or marketing consulting firms. As a matter of fact, the vast majority of our respondents are on the in-house and corporate side. And so, Suwan, maybe you can speak. We didn't talk a lot about industries, right, on the corporate side, but as it relates to any industries that you see that have the most demand for in-house professionals that is driving compensation up, what industries are you seeing trends in demand for marketing, creative, and digital professionals on the in-house side?
On the in-house side, what I'm seeing in the companies that I'm talking to, it can vary greatly. So obviously, there's the typical industries that are either high tech, healthcare, financial. Those are typically always in demand. But one of the things that I found that was very interesting is it went beyond just the industry themselves. It went to a point of what that company was specifically doing in regards to its approach to its customer, its approach to the market, and approach to how they were doing business. So, for example, a consumer goods company that was a B2C company, typical box store, but what they were looking at is very innovative ways to reach their customer from a customer experience standpoint, enhance the experience that the customer was having. So they were looking at all of these innovation apps to help aid their customers' ability to interact with them more directly, seamlessly, and consistently. And so that actually created this massive need for creative folks internally, even though it was a typical box consumer goods store. Same thing on the financial end. If you look at, say, companies that are typical financial or banking or investment houses, the ones that are really driving the industry are the ones that are looking at innovative ways to help their customer use their product, be aware of their product, and interact with a very strong sense of customer experience. And those are the companies that are building these massive centers to help that, and it's paying off. It's paying off in their loyalty. It's paying off in the customer's repeat and referral business, and it's paying off in attracting and acquiring new customers. So those are just a couple of the trends that I've seen based upon the enterprises that I've interacted with in the last year.
Perfect. Great. Well, we are coming to the end of our time here. We may not have gotten all of the questions answered. There's one quick one here that I can answer, which was in respect to vacation and time off. We talked about what is the average is 14 days plus 9 floating holidays. And the question was, is that upon hire through 5 years of service? And I would say on average, yes, right? That is the average. However, in highly competitive marketplace that we are, in some cases to attract experienced professionals, organizations have some discretion where they may offer more than that if an individual is accustomed to having a higher level of vacation as a means of attracting them to their company. So thank you all very much for joining us today. We appreciate it. We hope that we've given you some insight relative to what you can do with your organization to maintain a level of competitiveness on compensation, but also some strategies to recruit top talent and retain top talent. You will get, again, a copy of today's webinar as well as the slides and a follow-up communication from us, and we thank you all very much for joining us. I want to thank Suwan and Sarah for being our resident experts, because I know you deal with this every single day, as well as your insight. So thanks, Suwan. Thank you, Sarah. And thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you, Diane, and everyone.